The words hit me like a slap across the face in front of the entire marketing team. Even the intern has better instincts than you, Madison. My boss, Derek Castellano, chuckled as he said it, his perfectly veneered teeth gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights of our Manhattan office conference room. 23 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me, some with pity, others with barely concealed satisfaction at seeing the overachiever finally get knocked down a peg. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment as I gripped my presentation folder so tightly that my knuckles turned white. 3 years at Morrison & Associates Marketing, 3 years of 60-hour weeks, 3 years of saying yes to every impossible deadline and unreasonable request. And this was how Derek repaid my loyalty? By comparing me to Emma, the 21-year-old intern who'd been here for exactly 6 weeks and spent most of her time posting TikToks in the break room. The meeting had started like any other Tuesday morning strategy session. Coffee-stained papers scattered across the mahogany table, the familiar scent of Derek's expensive cologne mixing with the lingering aroma of someone's breakfast bagel. I'd spent the entire weekend preparing my presentation for the Northbridge financial account, our biggest potential client of the year. $5 million in annual revenue was on the line, and I knew this campaign inside and out. But Derek had barely glanced at my comprehensive market analysis before dismissing it with a wave of his manicured hand. Too safe, Madison. Too predictable. We need something that screams innovation. Then he'd turn to Emma, who was nervously fidgeting with her phone under the table. Emma, you're close to their target demographic. What do you think? Emma had stammered through some half-baked idea about using social media influencers and cryptocurrency partnerships. It was trendy, sure, but completely wrong for a conservative financial firm whose average client was 55 years old and still wrote checks for their monthly bills. I tried to interject, to explain why her approach would alienate Northbridge's core customer base, but Derek had cut me off. Madison, you're thinking like yesterday's marketer. Emma gets it. She understands where the industry is heading. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of Manhattan traffic 20 floors below. Even the intern has better instincts than you. The meeting ended with Derek assigning the Northbridge account to Emma, with me as her mentor, a humiliating demotion disguised as professional development. As everyone filed out, chattering about lunch plans and weekend activities, I remained frozen in my chair, staring at the presentation I'd poured my heart into. Emma approached me hesitantly, her designer handbag, probably worth more than my monthly rent, clutched against her chest. Madison, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Maybe we could work together on this. I looked up at her, this privileged recent graduate whose biggest professional challenge had been choosing between her father's law firm internship and her mother's fashion magazine connections. Don't worry about it, Emma. This is just how things work around here. But inside, I was already planning my next move. Derek had made a critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. And more importantly, he'd underestimated what I knew about the Northbridge financial account that nobody else in that room did. As I walked back to my cramped cubicle, past the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of Central Park, I couldn't help but smile. Derek wanted to see who had better instincts. He was about to find out exactly what 3 years of experience and genuine client research could accomplish. That afternoon, while Emma was frantically Googling financial marketing strategies at her desk, I was 3 blocks away at Corner Bistro, sharing a quiet lunch with the one person who could change everything, Robert Northbridge himself. Most people didn't know that Robert preferred small, unpretentious restaurants to the fancy steakhouses where Derek usually entertained clients. They didn't know that he'd grown up in Queens, the son of a mechanic, and that despite his current wealth, he still felt more comfortable in places that reminded him of his roots. But I knew, because I'd done my homework. Madison, I have to say, your preliminary research impressed me more than anything Morrison & Associates has presented so far, Robert said, cutting into his burger with the same precision he probably used to analyze investment portfolios. At 62, he had the sharp eyes of someone who'd built a financial empire from nothing, and the humility of someone who remembered where he came from. I'm glad you found it valuable, Mr. Northbridge. Though I should mention, there's been a change in the account management. Derek has assigned one of our junior team members to lead your campaign. I kept my voice neutral, professional, even as my stomach churned with the injustice of it all. Robert raised an eyebrow. Emma Harrison? I met her briefly at the pitch meeting. Seems like a nice girl, but he paused, choosing his words carefully. She spent most of the time talking about reaching millennials through crypto influencers. I'm not sure she understands that my average client is my age and has their retirement savings with us because we're stable and trustworthy, not because we're trendy. This was exactly what I'd been hoping to hear. You're absolutely right. The research shows that Northbridge's core demographic values experience and reliability above all else. They're not looking for flashy social media campaigns. They want to know their financial advisor understands their long-term goals. Robert nodded slowly, then leaned forward. Madison, can I ask you something? Why isn't Derek leading this account himself? You clearly understand our needs better than anyone else I've met at your firm. I chose my words carefully. Derek believes in developing our junior talent. He thinks fresh perspectives can bring innovative solutions. Even as I said it, the words left a bitter taste in my mouth. Robert was quiet for a moment, watching the lunch crowd hurry past the window. You know, in my experience, the best innovations come from people who understand the fundamentals first. You can't build something new if you don't know what already works. We spent the next hour discussing strategy, and I could see Robert's enthusiasm growing as I outlined my vision for his campaign. Unlike Emma's scattered approach, mine was built on solid research and genuine understanding of his company's values. I'd studied every successful financial marketing campaign of the past 5 years, analyzed Northbridge's customer retention patterns, and even surveyed their existing clients about what factors influenced their choice of financial advisor. As we prepared to leave, Robert handed me his business card. Madison, I want you to know that regardless of who Derek assigns to this account, I'll be evaluating the campaign based on results, not personalities. The person who truly understands my business will be the one I choose to work with long-term. Walking back to the office, I felt a surge of confidence I hadn't experienced since that morning's humiliation. Derek thought he was teaching me a lesson about knowing my place, but he'd actually given me the opportunity to prove my worth directly to the client. That evening, I stayed late in the office, working on a comprehensive strategy document that would knock Derek's socks off. The cleaning crew had long since finished their rounds, and the building was eerily quiet except for the occasional rumble of the subway trains far below. Through my cubicle window, I could see the lights of the city stretching endlessly in every direction, each one representing someone's dreams and ambitions. My phone buzzed with a text from my roommate asking if I'd be home for dinner, but I barely glanced at it. I was in the zone, the place where everything clicked and ideas flowed like water. This was why I'd moved to New York 3 years ago, why I'd chosen the demanding world of marketing over the comfortable predictability of my hometown in Ohio. This was my moment to shine. The next morning, Derek's office felt like a courtroom as I knocked on his door. He was on the phone, gesturing wildly while talking to someone about golf handicaps and weekend plans in the Hamptons. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind his desk, I could see the morning rush hour traffic creeping through Central Park. Thousands of people starting their day with hopes and ambitions just like mine. "Come in, Madison. Close the door," he said after ending his call. Derek's office was a monument to his success. Original artwork on the walls, a leather sofa that probably cost more than my annual salary, and photographs of him shaking hands with various celebrities and politicians. I heard through the grapevine that you had lunch with Robert Northbridge yesterday. Want to explain what that was about? I'd been expecting this. In the world of high-stakes marketing, word traveled fast. Robert reached out to me directly. He had some questions about the market research I'd presented, and I thought it would be appropriate to address his concerns. Derek's jaw tightened. Madison, let me be very clear about something. Emma is leading the Northbridge account. Your job is to support her, not to go behind her back and confuse the client with contradictory information. I wasn't contradicting anything. I was providing the client with the comprehensive analysis he requested. I kept my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. Derek, I need to be honest with you. Robert has serious concerns about the current direction of the campaign. He specifically told me that Emma's approach doesn't align with his company's values or target demographic. Derek stood up from his chair, his face reddening. At 45, he was still handsome in that polished Manhattan executive way, but anger made him look petty and small. Are you questioning my judgment, Madison? Because I seem to remember you being the one who couldn't come up with a fresh idea to save your life. I'm not questioning your judgment. I'm sharing feedback from our most important potential client. I pulled out my phone and showed him the follow-up email Robert had sent me that morning. He's asked me to prepare a detailed presentation for next week's final pitch meeting. He wants to see both approaches before making his decision. Derek snatched the phone from my hands, his eyes scanning the email with growing disbelief. I watched his expression change from anger to confusion to something that looked almost like respect, though he'd never admit it. "This doesn't change anything," he said finally, handing back my phone. "Emma is still the lead on this account. If Robert wants to see your presentation, fine, but it goes through Emma first, and she presents it to the client. You'll be there as support staff." I wanted to argue, to point out how unfair and counterproductive this arrangement was, but I'd learned something important over the past 3 years. Sometimes the best strategy was to let your work speak for itself. "Of course, Derek. I'll make sure Emma has everything she needs for a successful presentation." That afternoon, I found Emma in the break room, frantically scrolling through marketing blogs on her laptop, while stress-eating a bag of expensive organic kale chips. She looked up when I approached, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide the dark circles under her eyes. "Madison, thank God you're here. I have no idea what I'm doing with this Northbridge thing. I've been reading about financial marketing all night, and it's completely different from everything I learned in college." She closed her laptop with a frustrated sigh. "I know Derek wants me to lead this, but honestly, I think you should be the one presenting to the client." For a moment, I felt a surge of genuine sympathy for Emma. She hadn't asked to be thrown into this situation any more than I had. She was just a kid trying to make her way in a competitive industry, caught between her own inexperience and Derek's misguided attempt to prove a point. "Emma, what if we work together on this? You handle the presentation, but we structure it around the research and strategy I've developed. That way, you get the leadership experience Derek wants you to have, and the client gets the comprehensive approach they're looking for." Emma's face lit up with relief. "Would you really do that? Even after how Derek treated you yesterday?" I smiled, thinking about Robert's email and the opportunity it represented. "Sometimes the best way to prove your worth is to help others succeed. Let's make this presentation something special." We spent the rest of the week working together, with me teaching Emma the fundamentals of financial marketing, while she brought her fresh perspective to the visual presentation. It was actually enjoyable, like mentoring a younger sister who was eager to learn and genuinely grateful for guidance. But as the final pitch meeting approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that Derek's lesson was about to backfire in a way he never could have anticipated. The Northbridge conference room was intimidating in its understated elegance. Polished mahogany table, leather chairs that probably cost more than most people's cars, and a view of Manhattan that made you feel like you were on top of the world. Robert sat at the head of the table with his senior team, all of them wearing expressions of polite skepticism as Derek made his opening remarks. "Gentlemen, I'm excited to present our innovative approach to modernizing Northbridge Financial's market presence," Derek began, his practiced smile never wavering. "Our team, led by our rising star Emma Harrison, has developed a cutting-edge strategy that will position you at the forefront of the financial services revolution." Emma stood up, her hands trembling slightly as she activated the presentation screen. For the next 20 minutes, she delivered the comprehensive strategy we'd developed together, explaining how traditional trust-building methods could be enhanced with carefully targeted digital outreach. She discussed the research I'd conducted, the demographic analysis I'd compiled, and the step-by-step implementation plan I'd created. It was my work, presented with Emma's youthful enthusiasm and visual flair. And it was brilliant. Robert and his team asked detailed questions about customer retention strategies, compliance considerations, and performance metrics. Emma handled the easier questions well, but when they delved into the technical aspects of financial marketing regulations, she looked to me for support. "Madison, you've been quiet during this presentation," Robert said, his eyes twinkling with something that might have been amusement. "What's your take on the regulatory compliance aspects of this campaign?" I stood up, feeling Derek's eyes boring into me as I walked to the front of the room. The key is understanding that innovation in financial marketing isn't about chasing trends. It's about finding new ways to communicate timeless values. Your clients don't want to feel like they're gambling with their retirement funds. They want to feel like they're making smart, informed decisions with advisors who understand their concerns. For the next 10 minutes, I fielded questions about everything from social media compliance to client privacy protection. I could see the approval in Robert's eyes as I demonstrated the depth of my knowledge and understanding of his business. When the presentation ended, Robert stood up and shook hands with everyone in the room. "This has been very enlightening," he said. "Derek, I'll have my decision by tomorrow morning." As we gathered our materials, Robert approached me quietly. "Madison, that was exactly the kind of strategic thinking I was hoping to see. Whoever developed this campaign clearly understands what Northbridge Financial is all about." Derek, who had been unusually quiet during the entire presentation, finally spoke up. "Emma did an excellent job presenting our team's collaborative effort." "Yes, she did," Robert agreed. "Though I suspect the real strategic mind behind this campaign is standing right here." He looked directly at me, and I felt a thrill of recognition and validation. The next morning, Derek called me into his office. His usual swagger was notably absent as he gestured for me to sit down. "Madison, I just got off the phone with Robert Northbridge. They've decided to move forward with our proposal." I nodded, waiting for the rest. "He also specifically requested that you be the primary account manager for their campaign." He said, and I quote, "Emma is a delightful young woman, but Madison is the strategist who truly understands our business. He wants you leading the team, with a budget of $7.5 million. Derek paused, his expression unreadable. "It seems I may have underestimated your instincts." I sat there for a moment, letting the words sink in. $7.5 million. Primary account manager. Direct client recognition. Everything I'd worked for over the past 3 years was finally coming together. "Derek, I appreciate Robert's confidence in my abilities. I won't let him down." "No," Derek said quietly. "I don't think you will. Madison, I owe you an apology. My comment in the meeting earlier this week was inappropriate and unprofessional. You've proven that experience and instinct aren't always about age or seniority." As I walked back to my desk, soon to be my new office, according to the promotion Derek had just offered me, I couldn't help but smile. Emma was waiting for me with a congratulatory coffee and a genuine expression of happiness for my success. "I'm so glad it worked out this way," she said. "I learned more from you in 1 week than I did in 4 years of college. And honestly, I'm much better suited to the creative side of campaigns than the strategic management side." That afternoon, I called my parents in Ohio to share the news. My mother cried with pride, and my father, who had always worried about his daughter trying to make it in the big city, finally admitted that maybe I'd been right to chase my dreams. As the sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, I stood at my new office window and reflected on the journey that had brought me here. Derek's cruel words had stung, but they'd also motivated me to prove my worth in the most definitive way possible, through results. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's simply being so undeniably good at what you do that your critics have no choice but to acknowledge your excellence. Derek had laughed and said even the intern had better instincts. Now he knew exactly who the client thanked when the deal was closed.